I watched my son hand his stepfather the keys to a brand new Ford F-350 in our driveway last Father's Day. The truck was gleaming under the June sun, a massive black beast with custom rims and that unmistakable new vehicle shine. Everyone was gathered around taking photos and cheering while my ex-wife stood there beaming with pride. Meanwhile, sitting on my lap was a Walmart envelope containing a $20 Applebee's gift card and a generic store-bought card with Happy Father's Day printed on it. My son hadn't even bothered to sign it. That moment broke something inside me. After 30 years of running a successful plumbing business, after paying for his private school education, his college tuition, and fronting the down payment for his first house, this is what our relationship had become. But what happened next would change everything. And I mean everything. But let me back up. I need you to understand how we got here. My name is Robert Callahan. I built Callahan Plumbing and Heating from nothing after dropping out of college when my then-girlfriend, Sarah, got pregnant with our son, Michael. We were young, too young probably, but I was determined to provide for my family. I worked 80-hour weeks for years, crawling under houses, dealing with sewage backups on holidays, and taking emergency calls at 3 a.m. while Sarah stayed home with Michael. The business grew faster than I expected. Within 10 years, I had 15 employees and 5 service trucks. We were the go-to plumbers for 3 counties. I was making good money. Not wealthy by any means, but comfortable enough to afford a nice 4-bedroom house in a good school district and to start putting away money for Michael's college fund. But I missed so much. First steps, first words, baseball games, school plays. I was always working, always trying to build something that would secure our future. I'm doing this for us, I'd tell Sarah during our increasingly frequent arguments, for Michael's future. But the truth was, I was becoming a stranger to my own family. By the time Michael was 12, Sarah had enough. "You're never here," she said during our last big fight. "You can provide everything except the one thing we actually need, you." The divorce wasn't messy, at least not legally. I gave her the house, generous alimony, and child support. I moved into a small apartment above my shop and threw myself even deeper into my work. I'll never forget the day Sarah introduced Michael to Greg. It was about a year after our divorce. Greg was everything I wasn't. Present, attentive, and with a stable 9-to-5 job that let him attend every one of Michael's baseball games. He was a regional manager for an insurance company, wore crisp button-downs while I came home covered in grime, and had weekends free while I was on call 24/7. "I really like him, Dad," Michael told me during one of our weekend visits. He was 14 then, already pulling away from me. "He helps me with my math homework and he's teaching me to play golf." I nodded and swallowed my pride. "That's great, son. I'm glad he's good to you and your mom." But it hurt. God, it hurt so much. When they got married 2 years later, I sat in the back of the church alone, watching another man step into the role I had failed at. At the reception, I overheard Michael introducing Greg to one of his friends as my dad. Not my stepdad, my dad. I left early, drove to my shop, and lost myself in inventory management until 3 a.m. Still, I kept trying. I scheduled every other weekend with Michael, but as he got older, those visits became less frequent. "Sorry, Dad, I've got SAT prep." "Can't this weekend, Dad, big game." "Going to the lake with Mom and Greg." Each excuse was a small cut, but I never complained. I just kept working, kept building the business, kept telling myself I was doing it all for him. When it came time for college, I paid Michael's full tuition at Boston University, $58,000 a year. Sarah and Greg contributed nothing, not a dime. But when Michael graduated with honors in business administration, guess who was front and center at the ceremony? Greg and Sarah. I was assigned a seat in the family section, but 3 rows back. I watched Greg clap my son on the back, taking photos together in his cap and gown while I stood awkwardly to the side. "Thanks for the education, Dad," Michael said briefly before being whisked away to a celebration dinner I wasn't invited to. After college, Michael announced he'd accepted a job at Greg's insurance company, not at Callahan Plumbing, which by then had grown to a $5 million business with 30 employees and 12 service trucks. I had always assumed, foolishly I now realize, that my son would eventually take over the family business. I'd built it for him after all. Insurance is more my speed, Dad, he explained over one of our rare lunches. I'm not really interested in plumbing. The way he said plumbing, like it was beneath him, like the work that had paid for his education was something shameful. When Michael turned 28, he and his girlfriend Amber bought their first house, a beautiful colonial in a prestigious neighborhood. They couldn't quite afford the down payment, so guess who they came to? Not Greg with his insurance executive salary. Me. I wrote a check for $60,000 without hesitation. "This is your inheritance early," I joked when I handed him the check. "Hope you don't mind." "Thanks, Dad," he said. And for a moment I saw genuine gratitude in his eyes. But it faded quickly when Amber called Greg to share the good news about their new house. Which brings me to last Father's Day. Michael and Amber had been married for 2 years by then. They'd invited both me and Greg and Sarah over for a Father's Day barbecue at their home, the home I had helped them buy. I arrived early with an expensive bottle of scotch for Michael. Greg and Sarah pulled up 20 minutes later in their matching his and hers Mercedes SUVs. Sarah barely acknowledged me, but Greg gave me that fake friendly handshake he always did, calling me Bob, even though no one has ever called me that in my life. "Robert, Greg, we have something special planned for you both today," Amber announced after we'd eaten. She was practically bouncing with excitement as she handed me my envelope. Then she gestured dramatically toward the garage. Michael hit the garage door opener, and there it was. A brand new Ford F-350 Limited with a massive red bow on the hood. For a brief, confused moment, I thought it might be for me. But then Michael dangled the keys and walked right past me to Greg. "Happy Father's Day to the best dad a guy could ask for," he said, hugging Greg tight as he handed over the keys. The silence that followed was deafening. Everyone seemed to suddenly remember I was there. Michael turned to me, that Walmart envelope extended awkwardly. "And Dad, we got you this. I know how much you like Applebee's," he said. I opened it. A $20 gift card and a card signed only by Amber, not even by Michael himself. I looked at the truck again, easily an $80,000 vehicle. Then back at my gift card. "Thank you," I managed to say. "This is very thoughtful." Greg had the decency to look uncomfortable as he jingled the keys. "Michael, this is too much. Way too much. You deserve it," my son said. "You've been there for me since I was a kid. All those games you never missed, all the advice, everything." Each word was like a knife. Not because they weren't true. Greg had been there in all the ways I hadn't, but because Michael said them so casually, without any awareness of how they might land on me. "I should get going," I said, standing up abruptly. "Early day tomorrow. Big commercial job." "But we haven't had dessert," Amber protested. "I made your favorite apple pie." She hadn't. My favorite was blueberry. Greg's favorite was apple. But I just nodded and made my excuses. As I drove home in my 8-year-old work truck, the Applebee's gift card burning a hole in my pocket, something shifted inside me. This wasn't about jealousy or even hurt feelings anymore. This was about respect, or rather, the complete lack of it. I stayed up all night thinking. By morning, I'd made my decision. I called my lawyer, Harold, who'd been with me since I started the business. "Harold, I need to make some changes to my will and the business succession plan," I said. "Everything okay, Robert?" he asked. He'd seen me through the divorce and knew more about my family situation than most. "It will be," I answered. "It will be." 2 days later, I was sitting in Harold's office signing the new documents. My previous will had left everything to Michael. The business, my savings, my house, everything. The new arrangement was different. Are you sure about this? Harold asked as I signed the last page. More sure than I've been about anything in a long time, I replied. For the next 6 months, I continued as normal. I met with Michael for our occasional lunches. I sent the usual Christmas gift, a generous check that never received more than a quick text message thank you. I continued to grow the business, which was now valued at nearly $7 million. What happened next I couldn't have planned if I tried. It was a Tuesday in January when I got the call from Michael. His voice was tight, panicked. Dad, I need to talk to you. It's urgent. Can I come by the shop? An hour later, he was sitting in my office, looking more disheveled than I'd ever seen him. His normally perfectly styled hair was a mess and he hadn't shaved. Greg's company is under investigation, he blurted out. Securities fraud. They've frozen all the executives' assets, including Greg's. And since I work there too, they're looking at my finances as well. I sat back in my chair. Are you involved in whatever they did? No, of course not, Michael insisted. I'm just in sales. But they're questioning everyone and they've put us all on unpaid leave while the investigation happens. Amber's pregnant, Dad. We're expecting in June. And now we have no income, and our savings are being scrutinized and the mortgage payment is due next week. There it was. He needed money. How much do you need? I asked quietly. Michael looked relieved. The mortgage is $4,800, and then there's the car payments, and Amber's already had some complications with the pregnancy, so there are medical bills. He ran his hands through his hair. Maybe $15,000 would get us through the next couple months until this is all sorted out. I nodded slowly. I see. I'll pay you back, Dad, I promise. As soon as this blows over. I stood up and walked to the window overlooking the shop floor, where my employees were busy preparing for the day's jobs. Good, hard-working people who showed up every day, did quality work, and took pride in it. Michael, do you know what today is? I asked. He looked confused. Tuesday? It's the 33rd anniversary of Callahan Plumbing and Heating. 33 years ago today, I registered the business name with the state. I had won $200 to my name, a used van that broke down at least once a week, and a baby on the way. I turned to face him. That baby was you. Michael shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Dad, I know you worked hard and I appreciate everything, but right now we're in a real emergency. I built this business for you. I continued as if he hadn't spoken. Everything I did, all the missed baseball games, the worked weekends, the Christmas mornings spent fixing rich people's toilet emergencies, it was all so you'd have something solid, something real. I know, but do you? Do you really know? I walked back to my desk and sat down. When was the last time you asked me about the business, Michael? When was the last time you showed any interest at all in what I've built? He had no answer. You've made it very clear that you're not interested in plumbing, I said. You've made it clear that you see Greg as your real father. And that's your right, but choices have consequences. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a file folder. After last Father's Day, I made some changes to my will and to the business succession plan. Michael's eyes widened. What are you saying? I'm saying that the business will no longer be going to you upon my death or retirement. I've set up an employee stock ownership plan. When I retire, the company will transition to being owned by the employees who've actually put their sweat and time into it. The color drained from my son's face. You're cutting me out of your will? Not entirely. You'll still receive my personal assets, the house, my savings, investments. But the business? That goes to the people who've shown they value it. Because of a truck? Michael's voice rose. You're doing this because I gave Greg a truck for Father's Day? No, son, I'm doing this because of what that truck represents. You spent $80,000 on a man who invested nothing in your education, who contributed nothing to your house down payment, who is essentially your mother's husband, while I got a $20 gift card you couldn't even be bothered to sign. That's not fair. Greg was there for me growing up. He came to my games, helped with homework. Because I was working. I slammed my hand on the desk, surprising both of us. I rarely lose my temper. I was working to build something for you. Do you think I wanted to miss those things? Do you think I enjoyed crawling under houses while other dads were coaching Little League? I did what I had to do to secure your future. We stared at each other across the desk. In that moment, my son looked like a stranger to me. So that's it? He finally said. You're punishing me because I appreciate the man who was actually there for me? I'm not punishing you, Michael. I'm making a business decision. This company deserves to be run by people who care about it, who understand the value of hard work, who don't look down on plumbing as somehow beneath them. I paused. As for the money you need, I'll transfer $15,000 to your account today. Consider it a gift for my grandchild. And what about after that? When we need more help? I sighed. There's an opening in the office. Jennifer is going on maternity leave next month. We need someone to handle scheduling and customer service. It pays $55,000 a year with full benefits. The job is yours if you want it. Michael stared at me in disbelief. You want me to be a receptionist? I have an MBA. I want you to be part of the family business, starting at the bottom, learning how it works. If you do well, there's room for advancement. In time, you could be in management, but you have to earn it just like everyone else. My son stood up, his face flushed with anger. Keep your job. I'll figure something out myself. As he stormed toward the door, I called after him. The offer stands, Michael, and so does the $15,000. Family helps family. That's never changed, at least not from my end. He paused at the door, his back to me. For a moment, I thought he might turn around, might say something to bridge this chasm between us, but he just nodded slightly and left. The next few weeks were silent. The money I sent was accepted without acknowledgement. I heard through mutual acquaintances that Greg had been formally charged with securities fraud, that the company was imploding, and that Michael was indeed out of a job with few prospects given his association with a disgraced firm. It was a brisk March morning when my office phone rang. I recognized Michael's number on the caller ID. Callahan Plumbing and Heating, this is Robert, I answered, keeping my voice professional. A long pause, then, is that job still available? I closed my eyes, a wave of emotions washing over me. Yes, it is. When can you start? Monday? His voice was different, humbler. Monday works, 7:30 a.m. Another pause. Dad, I need to say some things. I'm listening. Not over the phone. Can I come by tonight? Just you and me? That evening, we sat in my living room, each nursing a beer. Michael looked tired, the kind of bone-deep exhaustion that comes from having your world turned upside down. Greg's going to prison, he said finally. 10 to 15 years, they're saying. The fraud was massive. Hundreds of millions. He knew it was coming. That's why he let me buy him that truck. It was purchased in my name, but the FBI seized it anyway as proceeds of crime. I just listened. Amber and I had to move out of our house. We couldn't make the payments. We're staying in a small apartment now. He took a swig of his beer. Greg told me that you're nothing without the right connections, the right appearance. That the world respects men who look successful more than men who are actually building something. He said your kind of work was for people who couldn't do better. That stung, but I kept my face neutral. But now I see it, Michael continued. Greg built nothing. He just took from others. His nice suits, his golf club membership, his fancy vacations. It was all built on lies. He looked up at me, his eyes wet. While you built something real. Something that employs 30 people, that serves the community, that solves real problems. I felt my throat tighten. The work has dignity, son. All work that's done well has dignity. I know that now. He set down his beer. I was so blind, Dad. I chased what I thought was important. Status, appearance, the easy path. I looked down on what you do, on what you built. and I took you for granted because I always knew, that you'd be there when I really needed you. I'm your father, I said simply. That never changes. The day after you offered me the job, I went to the library and checked out books on plumbing businesses. I've been studying every night. I want to learn, Dad, really learn from the ground up. I nodded, not trusting myself to speak. I don't expect you to change your will or the succession plan, he continued. I haven't earned that, but I want a chance to prove myself, to contribute something real to what you've built, and maybe someday to make you as proud of me as I should have been of you all along. I cleared my throat. The work isn't easy, Michael. I know. Most days you'll go home tired, sometimes dirty. I'm ready for that. Your fancy MBA friends might look down on it. He met my eyes steadily. Let them. I know what matters now. We talked late into the night, really talked for the first time in years. About the business, about his upcoming child, about regrets and second chances. It wasn't a magical fix to all our problems. There was still hurt on both sides. Trust to be rebuilt, habits to be changed. But it was a start. Michael showed up Monday at 7:15 a.m., wearing work clothes he'd bought over the weekend, ready to learn. The first few weeks were rough. He made mistakes, got frustrated, sometimes felt overwhelmed, but he didn't quit. He asked questions, stayed late to study manuals, and gradually earned the respect of the other employees, not because he was the boss's son, but because he was putting in the work. 3 months later, Amber gave birth to my granddaughter, Emma. I was there in the waiting room. When Michael came out to get me, his face glowing with new father pride, he didn't introduce me as my father or Robert. He said, Emma, this is your grandpa, the hardest working man I know. Father's Day came around again. This time, there was no barbecue at Michael's house. They were still in the small apartment, saving for a more modest home they could actually afford. Instead, Michael invited me over for a simple dinner he'd cooked himself. After we ate, he handed me a wrapped package. Inside was a framed photo of 3 generations: me, Michael, and baby Emma. Behind the photo was a handwritten business plan titled Callahan & Son Plumbing and Heating Next Generation Growth Strategy. I've been working on this at night, Michael explained. It's just ideas at this point, ways we could expand the business, modernize some aspects. You don't have to use any of it. I just wanted you to know I'm all in, Dad. Whether I ever own a piece of the company or not. I studied my son's face. The earnestness there, the humility that had replaced entitlement, the genuine passion for something he'd once dismissed. We should discuss this at the office tomorrow, I said, tapping the business plan. Some of these ideas have real potential. His face lit up. Really? Really? In fact, I've been thinking, Jennifer's decided to be a stay-at-home mom. We need a new office manager. Someone who understands both the administrative side and the field operations. I paused. Someone with good business instincts. Are you offering me a promotion? Already? You've earned it, I said simply. And there's something else we should discuss. I've been talking to Harold about revising the succession plan again. Michael shook his head. Dad, you don't have to do that. I meant what I said. I want to earn my place. You are earning it. Every day. But a father wants to leave something to his children, Michael. That's never changed. I looked at the photo of us together. The ESOP will remain in place. The employees who've given years to this company deserve their stake. But I'm creating a path for you to earn increasing ownership over time, based on performance and dedication, not just blood. We talked business late into the night, his enthusiasm reminding me of myself at his age. As I was leaving, Michael handed me one more envelope. One last Father's Day gift, he said. Inside was a Callahan Plumbing and Heating work shirt with Robert Callahan, founder, embroidered on it, along with a handwritten note, to the man who built something real. I'm sorry it took me so long to see its value, and yours. Love, Michael. I wore that shirt to work the next day and many days after. Not because it was anything fancy or expensive, but because it represented something money can't buy. Respect earned, lessons learned, and a bridge rebuilt between father and son over the solid foundation of honest work. When Emma says, "Grandpa's truck now," she's talking about my work truck, which I've taught her to recognize by its Callahan Plumbing and Heating logo. And when she's a little older, I'll teach her what that logo really means. Not just pipes and wrenches, but family, legacy, and the dignity of building something real that stands the test of time. The $20 gift card and the $80,000 truck are long gone. But what remains is worth far more. A family business with a future, a son who finally understands its value, and the knowledge that sometimes the most precious inheritances aren't the ones counted in dollars, but in lessons, respect, and love that had to be earned the hard way.